Welcome to Stories from the Center of the Universe, the podcast about the human experience.
Coach Dick Kemper, welcome to the Center of the Universe. I really appreciate you joining me. This is kind of wild for me because you were my coach when I was 16, 17, 18 years old.
You're still one of my players.
and you're still my coach. In fact, my senior year, you were my football and my basketball coach.
Yeah, that was an experience, but I really enjoyed doing that. I was coaching JV anyway, so if you can put the time in, and it was just a matter of working on how we could do it, and some of the stories we can get into, but that was just a great time. I really hated to have to. They made me give it up. I didn't want to. That's the beauty of coaching today is the relationships. If you can't build the relationships with the players and the parents,
right?
I mean, when we were coaching back when Tad, the priest,
yep.
And that group and Rand, his brother, when they were on the varsity basketball team, after every home game, we went out to eat at the Robin Inn.
Mm.
And Rob DePriest always said that he was my offensive coordinator. And he would drill me. But we had more fun. And those relationships have continued today.
Oh, yeah.
With them. And you see those people, and I don't know, it's just it's all about relationships. And you got to, and the kids have to know that you care about them.
Right.
Not just as a player. You care about their life and what they're doing in school and the other things they're involved in. And if you can get that, they'll give you everything they have.
Yes.
And the biggest thing I think about is I always had the mindset that I can't screw this up. These guys are giving everything they have. I got to make sure that I have them prepared so they can go and play. So, and I'll start this off because this is the story. Back in 64, I was teaching in Alexandria, and my dad had gone to St. Chris. Okay. So he was a boarder in St. Chris. In fact, I got his English book, and in the back of his English book, he's got the points that he scored in each game.
Oh, right.
He had all the statistics in the back of the English book. But he was there for 4 years. At St. Chris from 22 to 26, and great athlete, tremendous athlete, great baseball player. He had an opportunity to go to the pros.
Wow.
And my grandfather was a comptroller of the Southern Railroad.
Okay.
So he shipped him off to Cincinnati to work in the railroad yard, so they couldn't find him in order to sign him to play baseball.
Really?
Yeah.
Why didn't your grandfather want him to play?
He just didn't think that was a great profession.
There was more
time.
Baseball, less money back then for sure.
I don't think the money was into it. He just didn't think. You played sports, that was it. You don't have to play it anymore.
Right.
Do something else. Become involved in something else. And great stories, but. In 64, I was teaching in Alexandria. Red Karn, who was at Woodbury for years, he was my freshman football coach.
Oh, wow.
And then my sophomore year, they split the schools, and he went to Hammond High School as the head football coach. And then we played against him for a couple of years there. But they took most of the great players from GW and went to Hammond, so we were decimated.
Yeah.
And we weren't very good. And then he went to Woodbury after that and became a legend up there and what he did. But coming down to, I had sent letters. I graduated from college in January, so I started off in 64 as a substitute teacher, and I was a substitute teacher at Wakefield High School in Arlington. And I worked every day because the coaches, they would take a day off to go look at film, and I would be the teacher.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So I was working, and then I got a job teaching 8th grade in March in Alexandria, called Jefferson Annex. And I was the third teacher that these kids had that year. So coming in March and then trying to take
tough.
them to India, that was really tough. And I had one group of students who they were in there because they made them go to school. They didn't want to study history or anything else. So I went to the principal, and I said, look, this is at risk. They're sitting in class. They're not doing anything. Let me start a curriculum where I teach them how to balance a checkbook, how to open a bank account, how to get help from the health department, and bring people in and work with them so that they become useful citizens.
Yeah, look, teach them how to be adults.
Yeah, and they went for it, and those kids were on fire. They loved it.
Yeah, because you were teaching them things they could use.
Yeah, and they could use and how to apply for a job and interview skills and things of that nature. So I think back on that and look at where we are today. We need to start doing that a little bit more.
We're still not doing that nearly as much as we should be.
Yeah.
Well, let's back up, Coach.
Okay.
Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Alexandria.
Really? And back then, I imagine it was very different than it is now.
Oh, yeah. It was small community. We grew up in the 40s and the 50s. So you went out early in the morning. You didn't have we got television, in 56 or something like that. 3 channels. We became the person. We were the remote.
I was the remote when I was a kid too. Yeah.
So, and then we went out and played.
Sure.
So whatever, we had a field behind our house that had a basketball court. So we made a baseball diamond, and and the field was long enough to where you could play football. So we, whatever the season was, we played.
You had all 3 sports right there.
And we were there in the morning, and then we would probably went to somebody's house for lunch, and then we'd get a call to get back home. And it was, the old thing was, if the street light comes on, you better be on your way home.
That's right.
You rode your bike, and it was a great. And we played on the playgrounds. We went to Maury School in Alexandria Elementary, and they had a basketball court, and we'd go up there and play. And we'd play other teams from other recreation department plays. It was just a different type of life.
Oh, but you loved it too.
Oh yeah, we did, and so that was really great. And then in '64, when I was teaching there, I had applied all over the state, and I said, well, my dad had gone to St. Chris. I want to apply to St. Chris. So I'd send a letter to them. Well, I got a call, and that was when Dr. Bug was just finishing up, and Warren Elmer was coming in as the next head of school. So I got a call in June to come down and interview for the job.
In '64.
In '64. So I came down. We drove down. My wife sat out in the car. And I walked in, and it was Mike Brenza. I'll just some names, but
yeah.
Mike Brenza, Jim Haynes was the head of the lower school, Dr. Bug, who was going out, Warren Elmer, and there was Jim Haynes. There was one other person in there. So we were sitting in there, and the first question they asked me was, "What's your philosophy of education?"
It's a pretty big question.
That was a great question. Don't know what came in my mind. But it came out, and I said, there's more to learning than what's in a textbook.
Absolutely right.
And to this day, that thought just came in my mind, and that's what I said. I went out to the car, and I said, we can forget about this job, because I just blew that interview.
No, that's a brilliant answer.
But they called up the next day, and so that started the career there. And it was great.
And were you teaching right away?
I taught. Yeah, when I first got there, I was teaching 7th grade English history and world geography.
Okay.
6th and 7th grade in middle school.
And the current middle school building was the building back then, or? The
middle school building was where the bookstore is now. Mm-hmm. It went that way, and it went south from there.
Okay.
It was
towards St. Catherine's, that direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it was still the same type of building that the bookstore and the Alumni Hall were.
Right.
Alumni Hall was really the senior cottage.
Right.
And they moved that there and made it the Alumni Hall. So and Jack Boland Mr. Boland he was teaching in one class. I was in the middle. George McVeigh was in the other room.
What a crew.
And then the partitions between the rooms didn't go all the way to the ceiling. So I was sitting there, and all of a sudden things would be thrown from one back across. And then Mr. Boland, he loved his shirts, and he had the monogram on the sleeve and so on. And George McVeigh would go out and go down and take a squirt gun with invincible ink in it and squirt it all over his new shirts or whatever. So it was a running battle, but it was a fun time. I think the kids learned something. I'm not sure. but we were there. And a story that I think is really important. When we were there, all the new students in the lower school, Roy Brinkley was there, and he was the baseball coach, and he coached like the lower level football. But everybody had to memorize the school song and the school prayer. And I can remember I was doing the same thing because I was new. I didn't know it. And if the kids had to know it, I needed to know it.
Right.
And so just stories like that and starting a career there. And I taught for a good long while, and then it evolved in I was teaching, but I was also doing I was doing the phys ed program for 6th and 7th grade, and then it evolved in that they wanted to start one in the lower school, and we would go. So we started one, and they asked me to do it. So I was.
Did you have a gym back then? You didn't have a gym.
We did not have a gym. So what we did is they had a blacktop on the back of when they built the new on the west side,
right,
of St. Christopher's Road. They built a primary school building, and the lower school was where the middle school is now.
Oh, okay.
And so when we did PE, I would have all the 3rd and 4th graders together. So I'd have to do group games or whatever with them in order to try to do something. And then it evolved into we built the lower school gym. And what do we need in that? And we ended up we needed at least 3 basketball courts going north-south, and then 1 court going east-west, so that the 8th grade the 8th grade team
the Bulldogs
would have a place to practice.
That's where we practice.
Because we were in the old gym at that time, and you had the JV in the 9th grade trying to practice, and George McVeigh was doing the JV. I was doing the 9th grade. And we would have a half court in that building, but it worked out. And then I said I would take that job until they got someone who was really qualified to do it. So we started the program, and the whole way of starting that program was, okay, these kids are going to have to play sports in the upper school, so we're going to break down the skills that they need to learn by grade in order to be ready to play when they got into the middle school in the 8th grade, because the 8th grade, it started with 8th grade. It didn't start.
Yeah, because 7th graders didn't play back then.
They didn't play then.
Yeah.
And that was the epiphany of the whole program.
And then athletics became full-time for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that. Yeah. I never went back to the classroom.
Yeah. Because when you were my coach, when I got there in 8th grade, I think I knew who you were because you were the varsity football coach, but I didn't have any interactions with you until I started playing JV and varsity.
Right. And that was the beauty of it, because working in the lower school, I got to see players, a lot of them, started in kindergarten and went all the way through. So I saw them as small, energetic. Then in middle school, and then coaching them in the upper school, it was really a great experience. I hope for them, but it was a great experience for me anyway to get to know them.
You played football, basketball, and baseball growing up?
Yeah.
What was your favorite out of the three?
I really liked I liked basketball. I wasn't great in basketball, and it's hard to believe, but we had a pretty good basketball team. We had a coach named Steve Osisek who played football and basketball at Virginia. Really great guy. Taught me an awful lot, not just sports wise, but just he kind of took me under his wing, and so I liked them all. I really did. I loved baseball, but I had a hard time hitting the curveball.
It's a hard thing to hit. It's a hard thing to hit.
And I was a catcher. I played wherever they need me. I was a catcher for a long time. Played third base. I was ended up in the outfield sometimes. It probably put me in right field because I couldn't catch the ball, I guess, or throw it very well. That's what they usually do. Whoever can't is the worst of the players. They put them in right field. But had a great experience doing that and playing, because that's the way you grew up. You grew up playing all three sports.
I'm guessing you played point guard in basketball.
I did, but I jumped center.
Really?
Because we had one fella that was over 6 foot. He was 6 foot in high school. So we're going to lose the tip every time anyway.
Right.
So the coach made me
wow.
I would jump. And but just things like that. But I had a really great experience playing in high school.
What position did you play in football?
I was center.
Okay.
Yeah. Loved it because you were right in the middle of the action.
Oh yeah.
Everything going on, and it wasn't. It's not like it is today, where the center is calling out the blocking schemes and so on. We just had certain plays you played and went from there, but just great experience, the whole thing. And I was also I was I was in the band, and we had one fellow that was really good before they split the schools. Bob Garter, who went to Duke, was a great player there. He was in the band too,
okay.
And we were more in the concert band and not the marching band because we were playing football.
Right.
But he, for some reason, because of him, our senior year, the last game, we got to march with the marching band for the halftime show in our football uniform.
You were busy that day.
But yeah, let's remember that. And I said it wasn't because of me, it was because of who he was.
Right.
But just good experience, the whole thing. It was just, I think it went back. If I had to really define who got me started that I wanted to be a teacher and coach, I had a principal in elementary school called Mrs. Beach. She kind of took me under her wing too. And I would go to school early in the morning and help clean up because they didn't have a janitor. So I was in charge of all the blackboard erasers. I had to go out and clean all those and wash the boards, empty the trash. I'd do that before school started.
Oh, wow.
But she gave me a foundation of relationships again and how to do that, and she kind of took me under her wing with that.
And work ethic too, because you were waking up early working.
Yeah, I love that. I love doing that. I mean, I did that when I was in St. Chris. It's not somebody else's job. If you're going to build relationships, the first thing I did was I built a relationship with the maintenance department at St. Chris.
Right.
I would help them. And then, in turn, if I needed something, they had my back. They would come up there and help whatever we had to do.
You had a great relationship with those guys.
Oh, we had more fun with them, and still do.
Who drove the basketball team to away games back in the mid-'80s?
Coaches did.
There's a guy who drove
Alvin.
Alvin. Yes.
Yeah.
Alvin was one of the nicest people I'd ever met.
He was a. We got him. I mean, he was driving a gasoline truck. We found out about him, and we brought him on, and he was there for a long time.
He was there the 5 years I was there, for sure. All right,
Great guy.
so let's talk about 83, 84 time frame where you and I overlapped at St. Christopher's. One of my first memories was being in Latin class with the 7th grade. I was an 8th grader, but I'd never taken Latin. And it was a requirement, I think, that every kid take a certain number of years of Latin. And I get Bob Blanton. And of course, I called him Mr. Blanton back then, but a lot of people called him Bubba.
That came from George McVeigh.
Okay.
Because he had a small head and a huge body, and so he became Bubba Peanut, is what George McVeigh called him all the time. Bob would get so mad.
I can see George is pretty gutsy because Bob was a big dude back then.
He was a back dude. He was a power lifter.
Yeah, he was
Olympic lifter.
Yeah, for 72 and 76. Yeah. But anyway, I'm in his Latin class, and all the stories I had heard was he had thrown a kid out of the window for misbehaving, and the rumor was like wrapping desks around kids when they misbehave. And apparently, and I was talking to Jeff Davila. Jeff was on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he said he was actually in the classroom when one of the kids got thrown out the window.
He would hold them out of the window by their feet. When he taught in Chamberlain Hall, you might be on the 2nd floor or something, or the 1st floor. It's still a long way to the ground, and he would do that. But he would take, the story was, and he did it, and he'll tell you he did it, but he took a youngster who was messing around in class, and he used him to wipe the blackboard.
I'd heard that one too. Nobody really, I guess, I was going to say nobody messed with Bob, but except for maybe George.
Yeah, he was great coach.
He was an awesome teacher too.
Oh, yeah. Great teacher. Still is. But, we came to the point at St. Chris, and this is a Bob Blanton. I'm sorry. This is a Bob Blanton story.
Yeah.
But we came to the point where I needed someone, and he was the obvious choice. We needed to start a strength and conditioning program because we just needed to get stronger.
What year did that start?
I'm not sure.
Late 70s, maybe?
Late 70s.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to give up coaching. I said, Bob, this is going to be the future of St. Christopher School. If we're going to get better athletically, we got to have a strength and conditioning coach, and you can do it. Whatever you need, I will work on getting what you need, and what you want, I will work on getting that too. So we finally started. We had, at that time, we only had the first weight room we had. Bob Herzog and I. We went down to the junkyard, and we welded weights and weighed them. So when you went in, it had how much the weight was. And then the chapel now at school, half of that chapel was the first weight room.
Oh, really?
And that was the south half. Then that means the east half. The other half was Joe Knox's ampersand storage room for all the sets and costumes and everything for him. But that's how the weight room started. Then when Robert Pratt was there, we got in the old gym we had one little room, and we got a universal machine. And so that's how it started. And then Bob started, and we used the hallway of the old gym to lift weights. And so it started that way. And then I said, I'll make sure I'll get the funding so you can get certified as a strength and conditioning coach. He did all of those things. And then he started his own business. And then once we got the weight room going down where the old wrestling room was next to the training room. And we made that a weight room. Then he was doing that there, and then he brought his business in the afternoons there. And now he's got a place off of Patterson Avenue at Pump, Total Training. But it's just evolved. He was doing it in a garage in his house with his business, and it kept going. But it was just something that started, and now he's still doing it.
Well, he's attracting people from all over to his gym.
He's training. I mean, he has done so much for so many. I mean, professional athletes, down to the high school kids from the whole metropolitan area.
Right.
It's just a great service, and he's really good at what he does. And
he's a very nice person too. I always liked Bob.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew him mostly as a teenage boy, but I run into Bob a few times since then, and he's always been super nice.
Just a very intelligent person. He was a Latin scholar. He taught it. The kids learned it, and he just got burned out in the classroom, and that's when we worked more with it, making him a full-time strength coach there. So evolving of things that we did, with of trying to make things better at the school, and I think people back then they saw what we did with what we had. So when we asked for things, we would finally get them,
right.
and like they were supposed to do the strategic plan at the school. They were supposed to be the athletic facilities got put off.
Right.
But then it became a priority. They wanted to get them done, and we sat down. We looked at what we had, and the biggest thing when we did the building, the biggest thing we wanted to do was to keep our students on the campus the whole day. We didn't want to have to do what Collegiate was doing and what St. Catherine's did by buying fields somewhere else and having the kids go. When they came to school, we wanted them there the whole day on the campus. So we looked at what we had and what we could do with it, and that's how we evolved in getting the fields that we needed and the space.
By the time I got there in '82, it was ideal. You had everything you ever wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember Bob before football practice. I'd never been warmed up the way he warmed us up. And you and he committed to a good 20 minutes of warming up.
Yes.
And it was the best warming up I'd ever been exposed to. And from then on, when I did anything athletic, I warmed up the way Bob warmed us up before football.
It's interesting. When Robert Pratt was played for me, I was one of the coaches back then when he was there. And we've been friends the whole time and still are. But when he was in the pros, Bob and I trained him. I'd meet him every morning, and we'd run the perimeter of the Country Club of Virginia.
Oh, wow.
And then in the afternoons, we'd run again or do sprints. And then he would work out with Bob, would do his strength for the 13 years he was in the pros.
He was an awesome pro, and he played fullback in high school.
Yeah.
And then he played right or left guard.
He went to Carolina.
Right.
And he was a fullback his first year at Carolina, and Dooley wanted to move him. Coach Dooley wanted to move him to the offensive line, and he almost left.
Because I imagine he enjoyed playing football. I mean, playing fullback.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
He loved it, and he was good. And the one thing we did, because when he was coming along, Barty Smith was coming along at Freeman, so they played against each other in 3 sports.
Yeah,
football. They competed against each other there, but we played them in basketball and baseball. He played baseball. I thought it was a disservice to him if we only played him on offense. So I played him defensive end.
Oh, I bet he was a monster.
When Barty Smith made first team All Metro their senior year as an offense, and they put Robert in as the defensive player. Just the relationships we had and what we did. And the one thing we tried to do right before we went to training camp is we would try to do the whole, I guess it's 18 holes at West Hampton. I don't know how many holes it was. But what we would do is we would sprint. We would try to do the fairway, sprint the fairway to the hole, and then jog around the hole, and then sprint and do the whole thing. Of course, he was much faster than I was, but we just had a good time doing it, and he's done really well. He's got, but it was those relationships. I can tell you a story now because. When he was a senior, he won the prize as the Davenport Trophy, the best athlete in the school.
Right.
So the story was that what they did, he had a buddy that went to St. Chris, 2 of them, Toby Vick, and Toby it's a been a Commonwealth attorney in Henrico, and then Wingo Knowles. So after the athletic banquet, the story was they took the Davenport trophy and went to the country club on the course, and they had a little bit of party. And they brought the cup back. Everything they didn't ruin the cup or anything, but they were toasting out of the cup, and so I said, you just had lemonade in that thing, right? And, yeah, right. But that story's been, but it was a different time. You reprimand them, but it wasn't that. You ought to think about doing that. You shouldn't do that, or that type thing. It wasn't that. Oh, you did this. You're going to be punished for that, or whatever. It was just a different. It was a different world, somewhat.
Yeah.
And, the years I put in at the school was just it wasn't a job.
Oh, you seem to have a ball.
Oh, we had fun.
Yeah.
All
right, well, let's talk about how my coaches through St. Christopher's and your relationships with those guys. So my Bulldog football coach was Ackerman. What was your relationship with Ackerman?
Jim and I, we did an awful lot together. When he first came, he was selling outboard motors in Florida. I think he went to Rollins College in Florida. So he was tremendous golfer. Still great golfer
a good athlete,
now.
Right?
He was really good. Tremendous coach. So when they came into town, my wife and I called him up and, okay, let's have dinner. Let's get acclimated to the school and whatever. And I learned a lot from him coaching about how to coach and the way he coached baseball. Small ball, I guess it was, but, you get somebody on, you're going to bunt them around, things like that.
He knew the game.
He knew the game, and they were very successful. So great relationship. He coached one of the younger teams in football, and the kids loved him. And he had so much talent. He was a tremendous carpenter, and he could build anything, and he could tear things down too. I just remember we had. When we were living in a school home on Pepper Avenue, it snowed and Jim had gotten a new chainsaw. So he came over and he was practicing. He cut the trees down because they were bending over. I said, Jim, when the snow on those pine trees that melts, they're going to come right back up. Nah, I got to take them down.
He couldn't wait to turn that chainsaw on.
Oh. So just a tremendous teacher, and he had a way of building relationships with. I just remember, I don't know, I guess it was the 70s when Jimmy Prophet was at St. Chris, and Jimmy's dad died, and Ack and I kind of took Jimmy on as almost a son,
right?
And I just would Jimmy Prophet worked with Ack in the summertime when they were going around building homes and decks and doing things of that nature.
Right.
And he just taught him a lot of life skills. Just fantastic guy.
Well,
still is.
Jim Ackerman's the reason I played football at St. Christopher's. So he was my homeroom teacher in 8th grade, and he said, "What are you going to do this fall for sports?" And I said, "I'm going to run cross country," because I had played public schools the year before that,
right.
And I was a skinny kid, and I'd gotten beaten up in 7th grade by these bigger 8th graders, and I thought cross country would be the thing for me, and I didn't know what soccer was. And he said, "Nope, you're going to play football." I'm like, "But coach, I want to run cross country." He goes, "Nope, you're going to play football. You're going to be coming out. Practice starts in a couple days." And I played all 5 years there. Yeah. I'm glad he convinced me to come out for the football team.
Well, that's what it was, And again, he saw something in you, and he wanted to get you involved in something. And that's who he was.
Yeah.
He saw an awful lot in kids that kids didn't see in themselves, and he got them. They became confident in their abilities, and they performed.
Yep, there was no doubt. My basketball coach in 8th grade, Andy Smith, who's still there.
He's still there.
I ran into him a couple right before the pandemic, or right after everything kind of settled down again after the pandemic. Yeah, he's still there. He still looks the same.
Yeah, and he's he's an interesting person in that he was a teacher, then he became middle school principal. He's done a lot with humanity, building homes.
Right.
He's done that.
Habitat for Humanity.
And he's been very, very successful. He sang. They had that. I don't remember the group they had with Don Galladay.
Oh yeah,
and they sang. Now he's singing in his church, and he does an awful lot with the church. And he's back now as teaching senior history.
Right.
Just and with a great coach. He was lacrosse coach. He did really well. Just given a lot of years to the school, and he was very good at what he did.
He was a great teacher. He was a good coach, and he was a better man.
Yep.
Yeah, I have fond memories of Andy Smith. Who coached the 8th grade baseball team? Because Ackerman was coaching varsity baseball back then in the early mid-80s.
Did we have an 8th? I guess we did have an 8th.
We had a team. We played on where the varsity football team practiced for 2 days in the summer.
Yeah, because we had.
It wasn't much of a baseball field.
No, it wasn't. Because we had one down at the far end. East Field was down in that area.
Right.
There was woods back up there going to Maple. I'm trying to think.
I should know. I played on the team, but I don't remember who the coach was. Anyway, let's skip forward. In 9th grade JV football, who was the coach for JV football now? I'm drawing a blank. You were the head coach.
It was Don Galladay, wasn't it? Was it Don Galladay?
It might have been Don Galladay.
I think.
Yeah. I don't know. I should remember. I only went there 5 years. You were at St. Christopher's a really long time.
Yeah, but
was it Griffith? Was he the
Doug? That's who it was. It was Doug Griffith.
Yeah, and then he came up to varsity as the offensive coordinator. Yeah, that's right. It was Doug, and and then basketball. You were my JV basketball coach for a couple of years, and we played inside the field house, and it was so cold some days. Whew.
And then when we got up into the Scott gym, we turned the heat up and closed the doors, and the guys were very ready to pass out. Fun time,
Oh, the best.
We tried to get those heat. Remember, we had those kerosene heaters.
Oh yeah,
it didn't do.
It didn't do anything
unless you were standing right on top.
You had to be next to it. Yeah.
Oh gosh, the stories.
Yeah. And then I had Ackerman again. Ackerman coached me in baseball on the varsity baseball team, and that was awesome. And then you were my varsity football coach, and then Carl Koenig was my varsity basketball coach my junior year. Yep. And Carl's no longer with us. He passed away a few years ago. And he was a stud at Randolph-Macon College.
Yeah, he was really great at Randolph-Macon. And then he was the first coach at Henrico High School.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he had Guy Davis, and he had one other, the really good player. And then when he was up at Mount Vernon High School in Fairfax County, then he got the job at St. Chris. I guess that was in the 60s, 66, because they won the championships in 67, 68, Prep League championship, I think.
Yeah.
And he had all these themes and things he did, bloody, I think it was Bloody February. And but great coach, really good coach.
Yeah, I have fond memories of Carl. There's one game where I had made 5 shots in a row. I was on fire, and then I airballed the free throw. I got fouled on the 5th shot. Airballed the free throw, one of the most embarrassing moments I've ever had in my life. And Carl pulled me out because he thought something was wrong with me, and he felt my arm. He grabbed my forearm, and apparently it was really cold to the touch. So I think he thought I was sick. So he sat me the rest of the game. And I asked him afterwards. He said, "Paul, your arm was really cold. I thought you were sick, and you just needed to sit down."
But he had a tendency to, if somebody made a mistake, he would take them out of the game, or something, and then he would forget about them.
He did that to me more than once.
And I would be sitting on the bench, and I'd have the players down there going, "Psst, tell him to put me back in."
Right.
Kerry Maul, Kevin.
Yeah, normally I play a lot. Why have I been sitting so long?
He took me out. Tell him to put me back in. I said, "Carl, you might want to put in so-and-so." But, something else back then, we kind of, or I did, and I think many of the coaches did, we kind of listened to what the players told us. It wasn't just us.
Right.
It was that chemistry that you tried to build, and a lot of times we'd ask them what they thought.
And you're getting their buy-in by doing
that. Yeah. I just a lot of times with some of the teams we had, I'm thinking about basketball, and we'd have to call a timeout, and I say, okay, what do you think? Well, I think we need to do this. Or it'd be I remember in football, Tad the Priest.
An incredible athlete.
Incredible athlete. Great guy. But he would come out of the game in football, and he'd say, Coach, the guard can't handle me. Because he played nose guard.
Yeah, most guards couldn't handle it.
And I said, he can't handle me. Put me on him, and I'll get in the back reel every time. So we had a defense we called 50 over. And he would go over to the strong side or the weak side. And he was right. I said, run it. Go.
Yeah, he was like a dancing bear. He was light on his feet, but he was a big kid, strong, naturally strong kid. Yeah.
He was an athlete that,
Well, he ended up playing. He played football, basketball, and baseball at St. Christopher's, and he played football and baseball at Randolph-Macon.
Yeah.
And if he was a little bit taller, he might have been able to play like Division I football.
I think so, because he had the skills to do that.
Oh, he definitely had the talent.
And he was a place kicker too.
Yeah, no, he did everything. Yeah.
I mean, I just remember when we beat Fork Union in, I guess it was 90.
Yep, because he was 4 years behind me. Yep. His senior year.
He caused a fumble with them and recovered it. And we drove down. It was late in the game, and I think it was a 7-7 game. And he drove down, and then we're going to kick a field goal. And they called timeout to freeze him. And he was a straight-on kicker.
Right. Like Mosley for the Redskins back in the day, yeah.
And he had a foot.
Oh, yeah.
And I just remember him, and everybody didn't want to say anything to him, whatever. And I kind of looked at him. He was,
He was super relaxed all the time.
And he went in there, and he kicked it and won it. And I think the year before, Brad Parrish had died in the car crash.
Right.
And I asked him after the game, we were talking, and I said, what went through your mind when you were getting ready to kick that ball? He said, I was thinking about Brad.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably brought him some peace.
Because they had a really great relationship.
Oh, they were
together.
frickin' frack.
Yeah.
They made each other laugh all the time. Oh.
He was a trip, and he'd let you know how he felt about things, And we had, when you think about it, the one thing he was like the cook at a summer camp.
Oh yeah,
when we ran it.
He loved St. Christopher's.
And he loved kids. He loved to cook. And so we had this bond. He said, when you get out of school and you get whatever, and you might have your job and what you're going to do in life, but we're going to open up a hamburger joint in Virginia Beach together.
He'd love that. He would absolutely love that.
And he would go. I just think he was being a big guy, and it'd be hot, and there wasn't any in the dining hall. There wasn't any air conditioning. He'd go sit in the freezer. In between lunch periods at camp in order to get cool.
Yeah, I knew Tad when he was a little baby, wearing diapers. I grew up about a block and a half from him, and we grew up playing backyard sports together. I was a lot older. The neighborhood kids were a lot older than him, but he hung in with us, no problem.
Well, and he refereed. I think he refereed Little League games.
Oh, yeah, he loved it. He wanted to be around sports all the time.
And he wanted to be around kids all the time.
Yeah, and he was hilarious. One of the funniest people I've ever known. Yeah, we lost him way too early.
Oh, yeah. He was working with me when it happened.
Yeah. That was a very sad time.
That was bad.
All right, let me. I'm going to go back to a varsity football moment when I was on your football team, and I'll never forget it, and it was a wonderful lesson for me. We ended the first half against Fork Union at home my senior year, so this is 86. And we scored a touchdown right before time expired. We went up 24-0. We had never been up 24-0 on anybody at any time in any game. And Fork Union they were a competitive team with us. And we were all kind of jumping up and down, smiley. And it took you a minute to get us under control and to listen to you. And then you always had us take a knee. And you were mad. We were like, why is he mad? We're up 24-0. And the point you were making was the game isn't over.
Right.
People have come back from bigger deficits than this. Get your head back in the game. We still have a lot of football to play. And everybody's like, we do. We got to be serious about this. And you got our attention for sure. It ain't over till it's over.
It's not. It's not. And we lost a lot of games right at the end of the game.
Oh, we played a lot of close games.
Yeah. But that was a different time. It was you took what you had and you tried to develop it to the best of your ability to give them a chance to perform and hopefully win. But it was more of developing that relationship and developing that chemistry, that everybody was important. And I wanted to make sure we had pretty good attendance, or
a lot of kids wanted to come out
on the roster,
right?
But they would come in practice every day. How can we get them in? And that's when we started. Everybody got mad because we were taking players that didn't play a lot and put them on special teams.
Yeah,
and
great.
then we didn't put the best players on special teams. You need your best players on. I said, well, every fourth down is a possibility of a special team play in a game. So let's make sure they know what they're doing and get them so they have an opportunity to perform and be a part.
Because you were developing young men, all of them, not just the kids that were really good at football.
Yeah. I tried to anyway. I mean, that was the philosophy. I wanted everybody, if they were going to give time there, I wanted to find a way to reward them if they played. And I remember, this is a great story. When we started, when I gave up varsity football,
what year was that?
1999.
Because you'd been a varsity football coach for a long time, right?
28 years as coach. But when I gave it up, they wanted to start a 7th grade football program. So we did. And they had like 60 people in the class, and like 48 of them came out for 7th grade football. And so we lined them up the first day. Had them count off. And we went to it was like 26 or 27 was the cutoff. I said, okay, you 27 for the first part of the season, you're on offense. And you 27 on defense. And then every time there's a change of possession, a new team is going in. Those kids loved it.
Yeah, because they all got to play.
They got to play.
Yeah.
And then we had a couple substitutes, and they knew that every other play they would go in. So the officials would come over and it says, how in the world do you keep that straight? I said, I don't. They do.
Yeah, they do.
They know. And they loved it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then some of the coaches there, they'd say, we got to have, we're not playing our best players. And I said, okay, you take your best players, and toward the end of the half or the end of the game, if it's a close game and you want to play the best against the best, go ahead and do that, and we'll practice that way. But they caught on fire because they were playing, and they stayed in the game.
And and every single kid was bought in.
Yeah. And they continued, and it built that continuity, and they played all the way through high school. So I mean, it had merits, and we did that with. I have a philosophy that is developed over the years, but I don't think on lower teams anyone should get cut.
I agree. If you can equip the entire
but teach them. So when we had 8th grade, I was coaching 8th grade basketball. So we had an A and a B team. And Tom Franz, I think, at the beginning was the A team until he became the varsity coach. And then we had the B team, and Ace Ellis, who was from Hanover County. Ace, he was the head coach of the 8th grade. And so we had like 13 players. And I said, okay, Ace, we decide who the top 7 or 8 are. And that's your team. You give me the bottom half. After we do individual drills and whatever, and we're practicing, you're going to practice against my 5. So if you're pressing, my 5 is breaking the press. And then we're pressing you or whatever.
Right.
So we did that, and we'd get in games, and we told them, you're going to play. And I remember a couple of games. Ace looked at me and he said, my 5 are not doing too well. Put yours in. So we put them in, and everybody was going to press us because we had 5 new players in there. Well,
right.
They'd done that in practice.
They've beaten that a million times, yeah.
But again, they knew they wouldn't get a chance to play. So I think that's important. We kind of lose that somewhat today.
We lose it at very young ages.
Yes.
Yeah, like ages so young, when they were back in my time, weren't even playing sports at those ages. Right. Now they're taking it that seriously. It's a shame because those lower leagues, as you call them, are meant to teach all the kids.
Well, when you think about it today, we have, and I'm trying to think of the word I want to use. I didn't want to tip my tongue in a lawsuit. But we have gotten kids who feel they're entitled because if you play, you get a trophy, which is fine when they were doing that, but that's not necessary. That's not why you're playing.
The kids would rather play than get the trophy. Right.
But we got a crisis right now in athletics, and one is we're losing all the officials. We're losing officials right and left because of the abuse they're taking from parents and players, and they got tired of it. And they just say, we're not going to do it, and we have a shortage of officials now, and we got to do something to try to change that trend.
You're talking about at the high school level?
Oh yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
I had no idea.
If you notice this fall, we had a lot of games. Some games it might have been because of COVID, but you had games that were played on a Tuesday or Wednesday in high school because they couldn't get officials. And we've had games that they
on
play
Friday or Saturday. Yeah,
and we've had them where they had to play Thursday within the L League because they couldn't get officials and didn't have enough to cover all the games they have to cover. So before, you could just go ahead and reschedule a game.
Right.
Had no problem. Now you got to call the Officials Association to find out if they have enough officials to. So we need to correct that somehow with it. And then this whole bit that they play and they're very successful when they're younger, and then they're on travel teams and they've been very successful, and then they get to the high school and the coaches and they're not making it on high school. And the parents are livid.
Right. I spent all this money on this travel team stuff.
Yeah. And sometimes the reason they were picked is because the parents could pay the money.
Right.
To be involved in it. They might not have been the best player.
That's daddy ball. That's what I call that. Yeah.
And then the whole bit about getting a scholarship. Look at it realistically. The amount of money that people are putting in order to get a partial scholarship, say in baseball.
Right. Right.
Because they don't have many full scholarships in baseball. It's a quarter.
Yeah, it's a couple pitchers, maybe the shortstop and the catcher. Yeah,
I don't know. The whole thing of athletics today has changed. This transfer portal that they have now in college. If you don't like or you're not playing, I'm going in the portal. I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah, it's an easy button for these guys. Yeah,
and you're trying to bring players in. And then you also got coaches that are looking at the transfer portal to see if there's somebody there can come in. So it's really crazy.
Continuity matters, and continuity builds better teams over time. Yeah. And so if you've got 4 or 5 kids coming in on a basketball team, 3 or 4 kids, and they play all 4 years, they're going to be really good by their 4th year.
Yes, they should.
Yeah.
And then most of them will be. But I think the biggest thing now is, if I'm not, because the entitlement that I've had whether through travel ball or whatever it might be. When I get to college, it's a different scene. And all of a sudden, I'm not doing as well as I thought.
It's a much bigger pond.
And, they're not giving me a chance, and so I'm going to transfer.
Right.
And you get more and more of that. And some of it is competition. Either the competition will make you better.
Right.
And if you stay, you got a chance to play because injuries are there. Whether it's I just think they talk about the injuries in football. I'd see the injuries in basketball.
Sure.
The lower leg injuries and things of that nature. So it's distorted from the way we were growing when I first started.
It's completely different. All right,
totally.
Coach, let's go back to when you were varsity football coach. What is your fondest memory as a varsity football coach at St. Christopher? And I'm asking the question for an on-the-field sort of thing, but it can be off the field too.
That's hard for me because, I think about in the early years, the players we had and the relationships I had with Robert. His dad couldn't. I went to his senior day at North Carolina because his dad couldn't come. He was out of the country or something, and couldn't get back in time. That was that. I think just the relationships with the different ones, but game-wise, the first year Eddie George was at Fork Union.
When he was playing actual high school football, not post-grad.
Right. And in his junior year, we shut him down.
And he was a man on the field.
He was a man. But he came back his senior year chiseled. And he had gone up into the Cascade Mountains or something. Had a personal trainer, and he was a beast when he came back in, and he beat us pretty soundly that senior year. And I just remember, I think it was McGuire. No, it was Jack Boyd, McGuire's brother. Jack hit him in the end zone, or he was coming across the end zone. Right before he went in the end zone, Jack came in and hit him, and he came back out of the game, and he said, "That was like hitting a mountain." He was a man.
He was a big, muscular guy.
He was really, really good. And then, so I think that when we beat him that in his junior year, and they kept running that sweep, and we cut it off.
He was a Hall of Fame running back.
Yeah. Fork Union put in the paper when he came back. He had graduated, and he was playing on the peak. On the prep team, and I called him up and I said, he's graduated. He's not eligible. And no, we were told he's eligible. I said, he's not eligible. He won't be eligible in the league, and you don't need him to beat us.
Right.
On that Saturday when we played him. But if you play him, you're jeopardizing the whole team. Because I'm going to tell you, Monday when the league meets, they're going to declare him ineligible.
Right.
Which they did.
Yeah.
And he left the next day and went to Ohio State.
Really?
Yeah. Because he's already graduated.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So he went, and he might have stayed a week, but he left from that.
So he never played on the post-grad team?
No. He could have.
Yeah, he certainly could have.
Yeah.
That's what that program was for.
Yeah. And he could have left. He could have gone from there to that, but I think he went on to Ohio State to get ready.
Well, he was ready to play college football at that point.
Oh, yeah. He was a man.
All right, what about basketball? One of your fondest memories from basketball?
I think when we won the Prep League tournament championship at home and beat Trinity.
What year was that?
Was that 86? 86. It was Rand's senior year.
Yeah, it was right after I graduated.
Yeah.
They got better after I graduated. They won the prep league that year. The tournament.
The tournament they won.
Wow.
We lost. We came in second in the league to Trinity.
Okay.
And they had a really, really good team. And we just played really well in the tournament, and big crowd that last night. And I think Rand he only scored 3 points, and he may have scored 2 points. It was the end of the game, and he hit 2 free throws to win the game. So that was kind of special with that group.
Yeah, that was 88.
Yeah, 88.
It was 87, 88 season. Yeah. Cole Durrell was on that team.
Yes.
Who else was on that team?
Well, you had Doherty.
Paul Doherty.
Yep. You had Alan Wagner. Is it no?
Alan Wright.
Alan Wright.
Yep.
And when we played them, we were using a lot of Coach. Can't think of his name. Coach Johns. He went in upper school.
Yep.
We had put in. We were using a lot of North Carolina's principles for defense. We didn't play zone, but it looked like we were playing zone, and it looked like we were playing matchup, but we weren't. And it was the idea that if you were one pass away, you were overguarding the guy. If you were 2 passes away, you had 1 foot in the paint and 1 foot behind. And we did those things. And I can remember in that game, Allen got in foul trouble and somebody else in the fourth quarter. And they came out, and again, listened to the players, that we would have taken them out of the game. He said, "Coach, don't take me out. I'm not going to foul. I know what I was doing wrong." I said, "Okay." And he didn't. And Paul Doherty hit a 3 in the corner. And
Paul could shoot.
Oh, he could shoot the ball.
That was the first year the 3-point line was part of high school basketball.
Yeah. And so I think that was a really a fun game. And to win that for the first time, we had won the Prep League championships in the 60s with Carl Koenig as the coach, but we never won the tournament. So it was the first time being able to do that. So I think that was a high point.
My 2 years playing varsity basketball, we lost in the first round. I think somebody beat us pretty handily. And then my senior year, we beat Trinity.
Yeah.
And we were so happy to just win the first round because we weren't used to winning the whole thing. That was the most exciting basketball game I'd ever been a part of.
Right.
Because it came down to the wire. And
yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. And the kids had a chance to really celebrate. And I can remember Jimmy Jones that worked in the dining hall.
Yeah.
Well, Jimmy was at that game, and I got a picture after that basketball game. Jimmy's there hugging me on the court, and he was a great guy. I mean,
he was nice as he could be.
We would do with him. We'd be out 2-a-days in practice, and he'd be walking across because he lived behind the post office on Patterson Avenue,
right?
And he'd be walking across the field when we would go into the dining hall because we ate. We had meal after the morning practice, and he'd come in. We'd go and he would steal the football. We'd have the football lined up to what we were going to do. He'd take it and start running.
He did that when I was there. Yeah,
he'd run off the field, and then he'd say, "Hey, I need a shirt." And he would say, "I need a shirt." I said, "What kind of shirt you need?" "I need a football shirt." "Football shirt? What kind?" "I need a Dallas Cowboy or Cowboy shirt or whatever." But it was always that. It would be something he would need, you know.
He always was happy, though.
Oh, a happy guy.
Always happy.
And he just died 2 years ago, I guess.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
He lived much longer.
Yeah. He lived a really long life. Yeah.
Just a good guy.
One of my fondest memories, my senior year playing football, somehow you knew Burt Jones or Robert Pratt knew Burt Jones.
We had a camp.
And I got to spend some one-on-one time with Burt Jones. I couldn't believe it because I remember watching him as a little kid playing for the Colts. Yeah, it was awesome. Met right there next to the training room. Yeah.
But that wasn't the year that they. No, that wasn't the year that they had the strike, was it?
It was the fall of '86. It might have been the same year.
It was the year. Robert might have been helping us. Was he helping
Robert? He had just retired. It was his first year.
Yeah, and he was helping his coach
after playing. Yeah.
Well, we had a football camp back that Robert wanted to start, and we brought in when he was still at the Colts, and Burt Jones came in and he did the quarterbacks. And they had Robert, We had Joe Ehrman, who has done a lot with inside-outside coaching now. He was there. White. I can't remember them all. But they were the clinicians at the camp. And we had more fun. And then when it was over, I can't remember the trainer's name, but he was there with them. And he ended up coaching one year at the in New Orleans as a head coach. Mm. But he would make them run after camp was over, and it was hot. And we would run from St. Chris School, go up St. Chris Road to Three Chop, and then take that over to Grove Avenue, come down Grove Avenue, and we got to. And Robert was living in the chalet apartments on Patterson and Maple, and we'd come down, and we were going to run up and go around St. Mary's and come back down.
Right.
We got down there was a bank there. And we got there and it was hot. And these people, these monster big guys, and they're running down the road and these people stopping, looking at them.
Like, what in
and
the world?
we got there and the temperature on the bank's at 103. Mm. And they said, "That's it." And they went to Robert's house because the beverages were a lot colder there than what was out there. But I always remember that. But they came in for 3 years. We did it. Yeah. And we could never, the public schools wouldn't send their players because they thought we were trying to recruit them. I said, I'm not trying to recruit them. We're just trying to get these kids to learn some of the techniques that they need to have, and we'd lift with them in the weight room.
Yeah, we have pros here.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you come talk to the pros?
Yeah, I remember there was Bert was in the weight room lifting with the dumbbells, and he had a bad shoulder or something, and he tweaked it or something. He threw that thing halfway across the room down in there, and I mean it was hot. I mean really hot, but that was just a good time, and those guys. So Robert still sees Bert Jones all the time.
Oh, really?
They go hunting all the time.
Oh, that's cool. Robert still lives here.
Yeah. He runs Sycamore Creek Golf Course.
Yeah, he's been there forever.
Ever. I mean, he developed that one.
Do you remember the game we beat Collegiate at Collegiate, and then Bill's Barbecue, Bill Richardson's dad, fed the entire team plus family members.
Yeah.
He was so excited that we beat Collegiate that day.
Yeah, I remember the time. Were you with us when we played Landon? Did we play Richardson's dad? We were playing Landon, and Tommy Slater was the quarterback.
I might have been on that team.
Okay, and we had the football. We used the Wilson football, and it didn't have any stripes on it. And the officials up there would not.
Was it a regular season game or was it like a scrimmage?
It was a regular season game.
Yeah.
And they would not let us use the ball.
Did Tom start his sophomore year at quarterback? I know he started his junior year.
Junior and senior, I think.
Yeah, because Richardson was 2 years ahead of me. Tom was a year ahead of me. And then,
yeah. And so Mr. Richardson went to I said, will you go get me some spray paint? So he goes in Bethesda, Maryland somewhere and finds it and comes up there, and we taped and sprayed the stripes on it so Tommy could use the ball we had. And we beat him, and we used a divide pass, four wide, and we'd sent two down the middle, and Tommy would read the safety. And if the safety went this way, he threw it to this guy. And we scored twice on that.
Tom had a cannon. He had a really strong arm.
Yeah, he did.
He could really throw the ball.
Yeah, a lot of memories. Been lucky really to have it. And I just remember, I was talking about Coach Osisek. I worked for Coach Osisek in 64 or 63. I was helping him. We ran swimming pools. He ran swimming pools. And we were, at that time, you didn't have a pool service. And you had to use the muriatic acid to clean the pool and get it ready. So we were doing that, and it must have been getting it ready for Memorial Day opening. I don't know how hot it was. And he said, hey, afterwards, let's go get a beer. I said, okay, Coach. And we were teaching in Alexandria at the time. So we take off, and the pool was in Arlington. And we go out through Fairfax County, and we go way out. I mean, way, way away from it. We passed maybe 10 places that were closest. And we got there, and I said, Coach, got to ask you a question. We went by, I don't know how many places we could have gone in and gotten a beer and left. And he said, and he had broken his elbow playing at Virginia, so he couldn't straighten his arm. And he pointed his finger at me, and he said, let me tell you something. You don't socialize in the area where you work.
It's a good lesson.
And I never forgot it.
That's a good lesson.
It was a great lesson.
Yeah.
But it was things like that. And he played poker every Friday night with a group. And then we had a lot of times we had in high school. He was my high school basketball coach. And we would have games on Saturday. We'd play Episcopal or Saturday, whatever. And we'd be in the locker room, and he'd be coming in from all night out. And he'd come over to me, and he said, he'd give me all the money he won that night. He said, watch it, I'm going to take a shower. I mean, things you remember. But he taught me so much about coaching and about people, Just been fortunate.
I remember being on the sideline in football at a game, and I remember looking down because you were the man, you were the alpha dog as the head coach. And I remember seeing you, and then I'd see Bob Bland, and I knew Bob had been an Olympic weightlifter, and then I saw Robert Pratt. I'm like, how did I end up having these guys be coaches and strength guys?
Well,
this is crazy.
And Robert, one year when they had the strike, he came back to Richmond until the strike was over. But he came back and he helped coach.
That was the 86.
Yeah. And we would be running things, and he would get up behind me and he said, how in the world have you stood this for so long? Because some of them didn't understand, and he was trying to teach them, what he had learned in the pros. And I said, you just do what you have to do.
Yeah.
You got to get them to believe in what they can believe in and go from there. A lot of fond memories.
Oh, yeah. So after you left coaching, you got into, you became an athletic director.
Well, I was doing that too.
You were the
time.
AD and coaching.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize
From
that.
1990, I was assistant AD. I was AD or assistant AD for 38 of the 42 years I was at St. Chris.
Okay.
It was funny. Back then, you wore many hats. When I was doing that, I was coaching and running the summer camp. So I really look forward to Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the 1 week I had in between the end of camp and the start of football.
Right. You were busy.
Just to get to And then times started changing. Reverse that hat and get those things done. But it became a time you couldn't do everything as well as you wanted to do them because you were spread so thin.
Right.
George McVeigh was the headmaster. It was different, and then we had, I guess Charlie Stillwell came in, and so there were different expectations of things and what they wanted. And I said, if you want me to do a better job in one area, you got to take something off the plate in order to do that.
Yeah.
And then we didn't have the personnel to be able to do that, and so I think that suffered a little bit in getting the continuity in the programs that you needed, because I didn't have the time to train the coaches.
Right.
To run it. I said, run the fundamentals. These are the things I want you to run, and then we'll go from there. And but it wasn't running the same system completely because they didn't understand it, and I didn't have time to teach them.
Right. Did you enjoy coaching more or being an AD?
I tell you what, when Bob Herzog retired and I had to make a decision, I guess it was in '89.
Mm-hmm.
I had a hard time giving up the lower school. I didn't know whether I wanted to give it up and become AD or whether I wanted to continue, because I really enjoyed working with those young kids.
Right.
That so much. And I just said, I think I need to do this. But I wanted to keep my hand in the lower school somehow. And because when we were in the lower school, one thing I did, back then they didn't have aides in the kindergarten or first grade, and we always had first period off. We didn't have any PE classes at the first. And so I would go up and sit in and it was Polly Wrinkle's kindergarten class. And I would take them and do activities with them so she could teach reading. Because they wanted to teach reading first in the morning because the kids were fresher and whatever. But I did that for years. And then when Polly retired, Margaret Hunter Sears, Margaret Sears Hunter now, when she came, I continued to do that. And then once I became AD and I was helping her and doing the same thing, so she could teach the reading and I could do the activities with the kids, she whatever it was. And then I enjoyed going back and reading to those kids. So that was a tough decision, but
because you want to do what you enjoy doing, right? Yeah. The current AD at St. Christopher's is Ren O'Farrell, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ren and I played football and baseball together. I'm happy that he's the AD.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's doing a great job.
He's doing a good job, a really great job. He, when he was working for his dad in business or whatever it was, and then we hired him at St. Chris, and he worked in the law school program. And then he took over summer camp. When I finally was able to give that up, he took that over and ran the summer program for a while. And then he got his master's at VCU, and he had to do an internship. So he did the internship with us, and I gave him to make sure the schedule was right and the times were right and everything. He did all that. So it kind of evolved into helping him move forward, and then eventually he became the AD too. So and that's changed. Before it was a one-man show. You didn't have any help. Now he's got an assistant, two assistants, and so all that's changed because the programs have gotten bigger. But it gave him an opportunity to work on that and help me, because I would screw up once in a while and have a team at Kerry Malk. I remember he was going to Nansen and Suffolk to play, and Nansen and Suffolk was bringing their team, and they'd bust his chin on 460 past each other, things like that. He made sure we didn't do that anymore, which was a good thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing.
So
yeah, you said something about scheduling. I hadn't had this thought in a long time. We printed out each season schedules for all the sports on that little trifold thing.
Yeah.
Those were the neatest things I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
When did they stop doing that? It must have been a while ago.
I guess when technology came in.
Yeah.
But we tried to do that because everybody would have it. That was our way of having. We didn't have the internet type.
Right.
And that gave everybody a
you could put it in your pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a great idea.
Yeah. That was a Bob Herzog idea.
No.
I'll tell you what. He was a visionary that taught me a little bit about a visionary. But he's the one that had the ideas for the athletic program and the facilities that we needed for it. And I just took those ideas and tried to bring them to fruition because they couldn't get done. But his idea was, you can have the best people in the classroom, but if you don't have an outward appearance that it doesn't look good, and we a lot of times it was we used Band-Aids and glue to hold everything together.
Right.
And it just didn't. He wanted to put brick sidewalks in. He wanted to come out of Chamberlain Hall and put a building there for an arts center or whatever. So all those ideas, and then revise and bring up to date the athletic facilities. When we built the athletic center, the Scott Gym was good. It just needed to be updated.
Right.
And basically, we gutted the bottom of that and changed the laundry room there because we're going to tear down the old gym and things of that nature. But he had the idea and the vision of what the school should look like physically in order to get people in to find out what jewel they had in the teaching staff within the school.
Yeah, our athletic program, we had, I think, 13 sports when I was there in the mid-'80s, and everything, like, kids and parents couldn't have asked for more back then.
Yeah, and I think about it. The one thing, I wanted to bring the river experience closer to the school. And I had an opportunity through the University of Richmond to try to start a rowing team.
Right.
Couldn't get enough kids to do it. And we started a sailing program, which stopped, but we had that for a long time, and because a lot of the kids were going to Fishing Bay in the summertime, and they were sailing.
Yep.
I said, well, let's give them an opportunity to do it. But if you use the river, it brought up that different area, and I was trying to get it so the girls at St. Catherine's would be a part of that. Because they were looking for, through Title IX, they were looking for those opportunities in schools. And we just couldn't get that going. But we got the sailing going. They've given that up since then, but we had that going. And
would the kids go down to Fishing Bay for St. Christopher's sailing, or were they sailing somewhere else?
Well, what we did is Swift Creek Reservoir. We got permission to have the boats out there, and they would go out there and practice. Then they would go down to Christ Church one day a week.
I think they're the national sailing champs the last couple of years. Yeah.
And their rowing team has done really well. And some of the beach teams have rowing teams. And Northern Virginia, it's very popular. So we look at that. But I thought that was another avenue that we needed to do. Because the river was a natural resource, and if we could bring that in, if we had the interest, if we could get the interest, we would try to get to schools, the kids, if there was an interest, we'd look at it, and we didn't want to take them away from a sport they were in. They would have to be released from that sport in order to do the other.
Right.
But most of the coaches would say if they had an interest in that, let them go and do that, because it was another way of expression for them.
Right.
But you think of that, and it's the same thing we're looking at now within the state association. Because, golly, we started the state Virginia Independent Schools Athletic Association.
Yeah.
That was a idea I had, or a dream I had, to try to do that, and because we had individual committees that were running these state championships, charging this money, and there was no oversight of anything. So got a group of heads of school and ADs in 1997. And we had a meeting in February. It snowed. Most of them made it because we never closed school.
Right, never.
And the people made it to the meeting, most of them. And from there, it was the idea that we want to bring the horse from the back of the cart to the front of the cart and try to lead the cart a little bit more. Do we need an association? If we do, then how are we going to do it? And we started that. And so I think the first year that we really had it took us 99 and 2000 to set the framework for it all and get the people to buy into it, because the committees were all, they had all this money. I don't know how they did this. They had the money in bank accounts and school accounts. And I said, well, when's the last time you did a tax return on that money? We don't have to do that. And I said, if the IRS comes after you, you got to do it. And so we got this thing started back then, and that's been another evolving thing over the years, and so it's gotten so much bigger.
It's going strong, right?
It's going pretty strong.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's been good. It's getting to the point now that I've told them, I said, I'm not getting any younger, and you all are a little comfortable, but we need to start looking at and moving forward. I've taken it for so long. Maybe you need new eyes to look at it. We started the process a couple years ago. When we started, I was a part-time, but it's not a part-time job. It's a full-time job. I said, you got to decide whether it's part-time or full-time. You got to decide we don't have an office, which is fine. We have a post office box. Office is my third bedroom in my house. The storage is all over the place in the house. And so all the records and things we have on that. So we kind of looked at that, and then they kind of said, well, what kind of money are we talking about? And I said, well, if you're going to get a full-time executive director and you're going to have to pay benefits, you're going to have a staff, you're talking pretty big money. And so we have positioned ourselves into it that I think we can do it with a new executive director and pay what an executive director would get it in the business world somewhat. And so we're going to start that process. Because, in fact, if I go 3 more years, I'll be almost 85. God willing, and nothing happens. But so I think they're going to make that announcement in January. That they're going to start the search.
What are you going to do with your time after they find somebody?
If we can do it, we'd spend more time at the beach. We're starting to spend more time in the summertime down there, and we come back because we love living in both places. Having to find new doctors if we're down there. We like the doctors we have, even though most of the ones we had were former students and athletes who have retired. I think we'd do that. My philosophy has always been, because people ask, how often do you go back to school? I don't. When you leave, you leave.
Right.
If I'm invited back, I go back. But I'm not going to go back there and just hang out.
Right.
That's not me. Don't want to do that. I don't know. Maybe I'll take a deep breath and just... I'd like to get to the point where I don't have to rake leaves anymore. Oh, my God. I raked today, and by the time I finished raking, the wind was blowing so much it blew them all back.
Oh, yeah.
But I said, if I don't get them up and we get rain tonight, they're supposed to get rain tonight or whatever, I said, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So, but
right on. I know you got to run here in a second.
Yeah.
Tell me about your family as we close.
Really proud of them. My son's worked for United Airlines since he got out of college, and still is working that. He's at Reagan, and he has always loved the airplane industry, and he enjoys traveling, which he could do a lot more of it back then. Middle daughter Kelly, she's done really well. She's now at MCV. The Fusion Center, running that. And she was at Chippenham for years and ran the ER there. So really, she's pretty special in what she's doing. Youngest, Kristen, she's her husband is a career Army. He's a full colonel, been in for 30-some years. So... He's trying to decide whether he's going to stay in now. He's at the time. He's tired of moving.
I bet.
But he I don't know what's going to happen. He can get a pretty. He's really good at what he does. He's in transportation and logistics.
Right.
And he's done a lot of. He's gotten early promotions all the way. Probably up for, what's the next one, Lieutenant Colonel, or
if he's a colonel, Brigadier General is the next one.
Yeah. So don't know. And, a lot of times if they're going to give you a promotion, they want to send you over to deploy you.
You're gonna have to earn it.
Yeah. So I don't know if he's ready to do that or wants to do that. 5 grandchildren, really.
Any of them here?
2 are here. 3. Kelly's 2 are here. Hunter is graduated from Hanover.
Okay.
The youngest one, Sydney, is a senior at Hanover, and she's on the cheer and dance, and
my daughter's a senior at Hanover now.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, she was captain of the cheerleading team and all that, so we went to a lot of the Hanover games this year, in the last couple of years, and she's been accepted to Alabama.
Nice.
And so. What she wants to do, it's interesting. She looking at it, what they're going to do. Her big thing was she wanted to be a nurse or a doctor. Now she's taking a social justice class at Hanover, She's on fire. She loves it. She's talking about becoming a lawyer to work in the social justice field. So who knows? It has changed. And if she can make the cheerleading squad, that's the next thing at Alabama. That's what she wants to do.
That's big time.
Yeah, but she was on the dance cheer with Fame group that won the world championships.
Oh wow!
This last year, the first time a team from Richmond has won that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I thought she was going to stop last year because they won the championship, but she wanted to go back. But now she's gotten off of that, but she's doing really well. And then Kristen's 3, 2 of them have been. The middle child is a policeman in Pinehurst, North Carolina.
Okay.
And she's done really, really well with that. Loves what she's doing. And then the oldest of Kristen's is graduated from Ohio State because they were in Columbus for a long time, so they're big Ohio State fans, which makes us Ohio State fans.
Right.
But she's now, she graduated from there and then went into their physical therapy master's PhD program, and then was doing the internship this past year got that at Ohio State, and just got hired full-time at Ohio State in their physical, one of the hospital clinics, and I think she'll end up teaching someday physical therapy. And the youngest one is a mechanical engineering junior at Ohio State. Just, I don't know where to get the smarts from. They got them from their dad and their mom and their grandmother. They didn't get it from me. But he's done really, really well. And he had an internship with, I don't know, Weston House or something, because he developed something, a part for one of their machines in his class last year, and they accepted it. So they gave him an internship this past summer.
That's really cool.
So he's done really, really well.
That's
and
great.
They had played high school sports, and so it's been fun watching all of them.
Oh, yeah.
And got the last one leaving high school, so and she's done well at Hanover. It's been a good experience for her.
Yeah, that's great.
It's a good school.
Yeah, it's a great school. My kids have had a good experience there.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Coach, I really appreciate you joining me here, coming all the way out here to Ashland.
Hey, I found the place. I'm proud of myself. I got a commitment with the state here. I got to get see if I can get this. I'm gonna have to have my computer on in car so I can get these people on.
Well,
but
awesome.
Thanks for having me. It's been good to catch up with you and just be a part of this. Is a great thing, and to just sit and tell stories, because
it's fun.
I mean, it's a lot of stories, and it's hard to compare one team to another team with the question. I was kind of evasive on that question.
No, sure, I get it. Yeah.
All of them were special. Every team was special.
They're all unique, for sure.
Yeah, they are, and some of them still are. And just go back and see them, and that's one thing with social media. The good thing of social media is being able to stay in touch with former players all over the country. Right. And so I've been able to do that, and that's really, I have fun doing that.
No, it's a lot of fun.
Because we can tell a lot of stories. Tell a real story, you know.
Yeah, right on. Well, Coach, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd also really appreciate if you'd rate and review us. You can find us at scodupodcast.com.